Hello and welcome to Season 3, Episode 3 of KittyCatGO Live, where we discuss various topics related to traveling and adventuring with your cat. I'm your host, Emily Hall, and tonight we're going to be chatting about camping with cats, as well as adventuring with dogs and cats together, as that poses its own set of challenges. If you're watching with us tonight or on the replay, be sure to say hello in the comments and tell us where you're watching from as well. Questions are encouraged along the way. Let's go ahead and dive in. Our special guest for the evening is Britt Kascjak. Britt works as a freelance writer in the pet space. She is a pet lover and a strong advocate for embracing a pet-friendly lifestyle, including her pets in almost every aspect of her life. This is where the inspiration for the cast pack came from, an opportunity for her to use her writing skills to encourage others to explore the world with their best furry friends. Her pack of animals includes her husband, 3 rescue dogs, and 2 rescue cats. Hey, Britt.
Hi, everyone. How's everyone
doing
tonight? I see there's a whole lot of conversation about snowing and camping in the snow. So it sounds like everyone's still getting out there, even in the winter.
Yes. And with you being in Canada, I know you are no stranger to the snow.
No, not at all. We just got another foot last weekend. So it's pretty crazy here right now.
Yeah. Well, so tell us a little bit about yourself and your pack of animals.
All right. So I am an absolute pet lover, and that's actually why I got into freelance writing largely, was so that I could stay home with our animals. So I work from home. I am here with my crew all the time. My crew are all rescue animals. It's another passion of mine. I started off as a foster and ended up falling in love with some of them and foster failing. So I have Daviana is my oldest pup. She is a 15-year-old Shepherd mix. And then Indiana is an 11-year-old Shepherd flat-coated retriever. And then our youngest of the 3 dogs is Lucifer. He's the newest addition to our house. He's a German Shepherd cattle dog, Bernese mountain dog. And we just got him a year ago, so he's still just a young pup. And then overseeing everyone and kind of running our family, because they really are the ones in charge, is Pippin, our 14-year-old Maine Coon mix. She's a long-haired tortie, but unlike most Maine Coons, she's tiny. So she obviously didn't get the Maine Coon size from that mix. And then there's Jinx, who is we call her the terrorist because she causes all the trouble in our house. She's a short-haired tortie, and she embodies the concept of tortitude.
I was going to say, it sounds like your house is full of tortitude.
Oh, is it ever?
Well, so Pippin and Jinx, they both enjoy hiking, right? What kinds of adventures besides hiking and things do they enjoy?
Yeah, so they're kind of on like the 2 ends of the adventure cat spectrum. So Pippin loves everything. Pippin loves camping. She loves hiking. She loves exploring, being out in her leash. And last year, I know you and I had talked about it, Emily. Pippin decided now she's not afraid of water anymore out of the blue. So water was always a fear, and we set up one of those like kiddie pools in our backyard, and all of a sudden out of the blue last summer she decided to climb in and start playing. So now we're exploring canoeing and kayaking and swimming with her, which has been fun. And then on the other end is Jinx. Jinx is a little bit of a princess. So Jinx loves camping if I have her camp set up right so that she can just like sunbathe and lounge around. And she loves hiking if she's in her backpack. But she doesn't want to get out. She doesn't want to walk around much. She'll like walk for maybe 5 minutes, and then she'll look at you like, "Excuse me, human, you're supposed to be carrying me." So they're definitely 2 ends of the spectrum.
I'm imagining her, those things where like people carry with the 4 legs and like one person on each side, and she's like lounging and eting grapes and like a leaf fanning her.
Yeah, she would love that. That would be totally Jinx.
Yeah, well, what made you decide to try camping with them? Because camping with cats adventuring with cats in general is not totally mainstream and common yet. But especially camping, that's pretty, I don't know, a very unique activity? What made you decide to try it?
So I guess my mom was kind of breaking the mold a long time ago because we grew up, we actually had a tent trailer, so it wasn't quite the same. Like I tent with mine now, but in the tent trailer, mom always brought our cats with us when we went places. So I grew up camping
Oh,
with cats.
nice.
She was doing it long before it was, no, it was common, or I guess more common, I should say, not common, but they didn't really adventure much in the sense of like leaving the trailer or doing much outside of the trailer, but they loved being able to be in the tent trailer, and we would take the one end and we'd put down all the windows so that they had screen all around the outside, and they would enjoy the fresh air and relax there, and they loved being able to be with us wherever we went. So I kind of took that and ran with it.
Yeah, that's awesome. Did you find that you had to do any special training or preparation to get Pippin and Jinx used to camping?
Yeah, the tent is a whole new ball game for them. When you put a cat into a tent, they now hear what's going on around them. They can see what's going on around them, and at the same time, they're in a structure that they could technically rip open if they wanted to. So there's an element of conditioning them to the tent and getting them used to being in it without wanting to climb the windows or scratch through the side or that kind of thing. So we started off just hanging out in the tent in the backyard. Like we did a lot of just in our backyard, spending the afternoon hanging out with them, and having, like, we would do a picnic lunch out there, or we would, just play for a little bit in the tent until they got used to the concept of the tent itself before going anywhere new where other new aspects were introduced.
Mhm. Yeah, that's a great tip. I know, I mean, I camp with my cats as well, and that's something that we did. We set the tent out in the backyard and even, did test runs overnight to see how they would do before you actually take it somewhere else, right? Because then if you have to abort the mission, you're close to home and can just go inside.
It's also a great chance to get used to things like finding the right litter box setup and that kind of thing, because if that goes wrong and somebody decides to protest, you can easily clean up the mess and get everything into the house or get out at something else you need versus at a campground. Because I know Jinx is notorious for, if she doesn't like the litter or she doesn't like the location, she's one of those cats that'll pee on the ground beside it and look at you at the same time like, you made me do
Mm.
this. So figuring all of that out, it was nice to have the house right there in the beginning.
Yeah, so on along those lines of the litter box, do you do anything special or different with the litter box and at home, or do you just like bring your regular litter box, regular litter? How do you handle that?
We bring, so we've tried a few different things. We've tried disposable litter boxes. We've tried bringing our normal litter box, but it's quite large. And recently we've actually made the switch to using a portable litter box, like it's a cloth side and folds up,
Mhm.
and then placing a litter box liner inside it, because the problem is where we live and camp and spend all of our time is it's pretty heavy bear territory.
Mm.
So having those scents around attracts bears to your tent. So what we've learned is that if we put the liner in and change out that litter box right before you go to bed each night, you can get that smell out of the litter box itself before going to sleep. So it's less tempting for bears to kind of come and try and figure out what's going on in the campsite.
Yeah. Yeah, that I hadn't even thought about that. I've never camped anywhere where bears were a concern. So yeah, good tip.
Yeah,
So I guess
it's pretty common around here. Like they even in the campsites, the garbage bins, for example, in one of our favorite campgrounds, are surrounded by a fence with barbed wire on the top to try and keep the bears out of the garbage bin. Like it's a significant issue around here, so it's something we've had to kind of
mm,
adapt to and figure out.
yeah. Is there anything else you have to do in regards to bears with having like your whole family there, like the dogs and the cats?
Yeah, the biggest thing is just to keep anything that has a scent that would attract them out. So food dishes has to stay in the vehicle. Any like litter that we use, we choose like a no scented litter, so that because they're even attracted to toiletries, so like shampoos and soaps. So the scent in the litter could possibly attract them. So we choose a non-scented litter. We try to make a point of giving just a quick wipe down with like a grooming wipe before we go to bed, just to get off any scents that they might have, because I know, for example, Pippin's a bit of a messy eater sometimes, so she's got that Maine Coon mane, and she'll get like food in her mane, so we clean that out to make sure that that's not a problem. And we have a separate water dish in the tent versus out of the tent, because the one out of the tent is going to be near their food, and we don't want anything that's like near that food scent in any way, just in case they like knocked kibble into it or something like that.
Yeah. Wow. Wouldn't have even thought of these things. I guess we do have bears in Georgia, like in North Georgia, but I've never gone camping up there. I've always stayed around the middle Georgia and South Georgia areas, so bears are not a thing. We have to worry about coyotes and alligators, but not bears.
Yeah, I don't have the alligator problem. Coyotes and bears, yes, but no alligators here.
So Terry is asking about tent camping. She says they've only camped in a small tent in their car. What size camper, tent, or RV do you use?
So it depends on what we're doing and how many pets we're bringing with us. So confession, I'm a bit of an outdoor travel addict, and I may or may not own 5 different tents. So it depends on when we're going and what we're doing. We only tent camp. We don't have an RV or a trailer that we take. We have a utility trailer we take now just to carry some of the gear, because with 3 dogs and 2 cats in the back seat and everything, there's not a whole lot of room to pack gear to bring with us. If I'm backpacking with any of the animals, we do have a 2-person and a 3-person backpacking tent. And they are a little bit lighter, a little bit easier to carry, but it is a little bit harder in terms of space, because backpacking tents are designed to just sleep. Like, they're not designed to have any space to move around. We don't usually take the cats backpacking, only because I like being able to have the vehicle there in case there was ever an issue with them. They're a little bit less confident around some of the wildlife and issues like that. And because, once again, being in bear territory, bringing a litter box out there is not something that's, the best idea in the world. So it's usually only one of us with the dogs, or both of us with a dog, or whatever. I tend to like to take the dogs out backpacking more when it's like a one-on-one trip. I also have a hammock tent that I use specifically if I'm one-on-one camping with Lucifer. And it's just a basic hammock with a covering, like a rain covering, and a bug covering over top. And then it's got an underquilt in case it's colder weather. But he's the only one that sleeps in the hammock, so it's really only if I'm doing a one-on-one with him. And when we're car camping, we have 2 different tents. One is actually more of a shelter. We use a Kuma Bear Den gazebo. And we absolutely love that in terms of having a shelter or a space that the pets can wander around as well. And like, when we get a little bit further into what the whole campsite setup is, it plays a really integral role for us. But that's one of those quick setup dining shelter type deals with optional privacy walls that you can put up. And then when we're car camping, our sleeping quarters is a 6-person Coleman Sky Dome. And that's because by getting a 6-person, we have space for both of us, and to set up some space where the dogs have a dog bed, and the cats, we bring a separate playpen for them in the tent so that they have their space. And it just gives us more room to set everything up where they're not on top of us necessarily.
Yeah, the tent that Bobby and I aren't nearly as fancy as you. We don't have a million tents. We just have one, and it is a 6-person tent, and it works really well. It leaves us enough room to set up 2 cots for ourselves, and then the other half has the litter box and some beds and all of our personal belongings and things, and it's very roomy, so everyone has plenty of space to be comfortable and move around in the tent. I've never tried camping with the cats in anything smaller than that.
We upgraded to the 6-person, I guess it was 3 years ago now, and I've never looked back for car camping because it just gives so much more room and space to just be comfortable, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, and when you have pets, especially multiple pets, it's so important to have that space because I know for mine, depending on the campsite we're at, if it's a noisier campsite, Kylo especially doesn't really like to hang out too much like outside of the tent. He'll like to go hiking and go away from the campsite, but when we're at the campsite, he just wants to hang out in the tent and he's really comfortable in there. And so for him to have that space so he's not, super constricted is important.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, with us, we've got, of our 3 dogs, 2 of them are large dogs, one's a medium-sized dog. So that alone takes up a lot of space, right?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. The last time we camped, we had our dog and Kylo. And so we had to have a big dog bed for Django and then, the litter box and all these things. I'm like, man, they have more stuff than the humans.
So true.
Yes. So in addition to the tents and that structure you were talking about, what other sort of gear do you have that's special that you need for when you're camping with your cats?
Yeah, so we generally set up our campsite having 2 zones. One is kind of our outside hangout zone, and then there's the tent zone. So in the tent zone, we have our 6-person tent. We have our cots for the 2 of us, and then we have kind of a different bedding setup for each of the animals because they all have their own preferences, right? So we have like a raised bed for Dav because she's a little bit older and likes to have that better support. It makes it so she's not as painful when she wakes up in the morning. And then Indy likes just a regular bed. Lucifer sleeps in bed with me. And then the cats, well, the biggest issue we have with the cats, which is kind of, a lot of people assume I do this to try and keep them separated so we don't have like an argument or a fight, but the cats have a separate collapsible playpen that we put their box, their separate water, and their beds in. And it's actually not because of fights or disagreements or anything. It's because Pippin and Dav won't sleep. They will play all night long up and over top of us and over top of everything. So if you plan on actually getting any sleep at camp, Pippin, the 14-year-old Maine Coon mix, and Dav, the 15-year-old German Shepherd mix, have to be separated. It's a whole thing. We have learned from experience that letting them like run and play on their own is just not a good idea.
Well, that brings up an interest. Sorry, go ahead.
I was gonna say that's kind of what we do on the tent side, and then on the other side, we actually use those wire exercise pens that you can get that have like the separate panels, and you can attach them together.
Yeah,
and we set up the panels so that they tie to the door opening on each side of that structure, that bear den gazebo from Kuma. We tie it and then extend out, and it creates this big enclosed area that the dogs can run free. And we have a separate one as well for the cats that we actually have a cover for it. So sometimes the cats are on the leash and just kind of running free with the dogs in there so that they can have their playtime. Because like I said, they do all get along and like playing with each other. But if we can't be there to supervise them because they don't obey the boundary the way the dogs do, like our dogs know any one of our dogs could get out if they wanted to. The exercise pens are only 36 inches tall, and having shepherd mixes, that's not going to stop them. But they've been trained so that's their boundaries. The cats don't tend to listen to that the same if there's, birds and squirrels and chipmunks. So if we're ever not like holding their leash and supervising them in that moment kind of thing, or right there to make sure that they don't pull out of their harness, they go into their own little enclosed separate, and it's just one of the exercise pens in a circle with a cover on it.
Yeah. So is that the same pen that you said you put them in at night?
No, it's actually a different one. It's a larger one. So it gives them more space to kind of play and have fun. It's actually it's set up for like a small dog to be able to stay in. So it gives them plenty of room for the two of them to move around and hang out and enjoy themselves.
Yeah, that's nice. That's nice. Sounds like a good little setup you guys have to accommodate everybody and all of their needs.
Yeah, we only ever bring all 5 of them if we're car camping, so we can bring all that extra gear, and we figure if we have the opportunity, why not make sure that everybody's as comfortable as possible while we're there?
Yeah, yeah, for sure. The enclosure that the cats sleep in, is that also inside of your tent?
Yes, it is. Yeah.
Okay.
It's one of those cloth collapsible playpens.
Mhm.
So it just gives us that little extra boundary to keep the two quiet.
Yeah. And you wouldn't ever recommend somebody leaving their cats in like a separate enclosure from their tent overnight, right?
No, no, no. I've seen people recommend that for dogs as well. I don't personally don't believe any pet should be left out. You don't know what's happening, and if you're not there to supervise it, that can be a really serious situation, especially with predators, whether it's coyotes, bears, alligators in your area. It leaves it out of your control where you can't keep your pet safe. So all 5 of our pets, if we bring all 5 of them, all 5 are in the tent.
That's a very snuggly night.
It is. It's great when we're camping in the shoulder, spring, fall, shoulder season because all of that body heat in there makes for quite the warm tent. It's a little less comfortable in the summer. We have to get the fans going. So
Yeah. Yeah, I imagine. Yeah. Well, kind of going back to what you were saying about why you have to put the cats in that playpen at night because Dav and Pippin will just play the whole night. So I know that's a common question that comes up a lot is my cat wants to play at night and won't let me sleep. They're scratching at the tent or just being really rambunctious at night. What would you recommend for someone whose cat is like that?
yeah, so that's kind of Pippin. If she doesn't get enough exercise during the day, then she's rambunctious at night. So we have to play with her a little bit more during the day and wear her out a little bit more during the day. Whereas Jinx, like I said, she's quite happy sunbathing, and that's okay because she's a more chill, laid back, calm cat. So when we put her to bed at night, she just recognizes that that is bedtime.
Mm-hmm.
So with Pippin, we actually have to kind of like when you're dealing with an energetic dog, we have to exercise her. We have to make sure that she plays or hikes or does something to wear out that energy during the day. The other thing is that she's trained to recognize that that playpen is not a play space. Like we don't put toys in their playpen. They've been taught that when we go in the playpen, we sleep.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that makes sense. Keep the play areas and the relaxation areas separate.
Yeah, exactly. And that all started with the dogs too, is that we had to do that because if the dogs get playing in the tent, there's a good chance somebody's going through the wall of the tent. So we're very strict that this is our sleep space and that is the play space and the two are separate. And that's why we
Yeah.
have those 2 zones kind of at the campsite.
Yeah. Do you also clip all of their nails and stuff before to prevent any like damage to the tent?
Oh, definitely. And not directly before. We do it about 3 to 4 days before, and then make sure that we get them out walking because that files it down. Otherwise, you have the sharp edges from having it clipped that can still cause damage. So, about 3 to 4 days before any camping trip, all of their nails get trimmed, and we make sure that they all get some sort of walk or hike on either a rocky surface or a pavement surface so that it can have that filing process.
Yeah. Cool. Question from Terry. She's asking what the difference is between camping and glamping.
Yeah, so there is no like strict line between camping and glamping. So it kind of depends on who you ask. Everybody has their own opinion. For me personally, I kind of draw the line at when you start bringing in the conveniences of electricity and sewer hookups and all of that fancy stuff. So if you're getting away and you're going off the grid, you're camping versus glamping could be, and sometimes it's a tent, but it's a tent with normal lights, electrical lights, and all of that fun stuff. So it's kind of bringing a little bit of that extra perks and benefits of being in a normal home situation or a fancier situation. That being said, I believe that glamping is a type of camping, and I would rank that the same as, people who stay in yurts or cabins, or it's all camping. It's just a different type of camping to make it accessible for everybody to get outdoors.
Yeah, I agree. And see, I would consider yurt camping or even like a more rustic cabin as glamping. And
Yeah.
see, when we do camp at sites that have electricity and water. Even like we don't have an RV, but just for our tent, we like to have the electricity. My husband needs a CPAP machine to sleep at night, or I'm not sleeping. So we better have that electricity so he's not snoring me out the whole night. So we require a little bit of the creature comforts of electricity and water, and I also like to have bathrooms nearby. So to some
Yeah,
people like you, that might be glamping, but to me, that's camping.
and that's the perfect example of the fact that it's different for everybody, right? So
Yeah.
we do have a little, I should preface and say, we do use a little bit of electricity and electrical items. I do sometimes work from camp, but we have a solar panel and a portable power station to allow us to do that. So
Wow, yeah, you guys are like hardcore. Very cool. Terry has another great question about securing tent zippers. I cannot speak. Securing tent zippers while you're in for the night.
Definitely. So personally, I have a small little locking carabiner, and what I do is I bring the zippers to the very top of the tent door, and I hook the carabiner through those zippers up there. But other things that I've seen people do, if you don't have that or that's not accessible, is to use luggage locks. I've seen people do, and I've seen zip ties,
Mm-hmm.
which is a really easy way to do it. That you can pick up a package of 100 of them at the dollar store. It
Mm-hmm.
costs next to nothing, and just make sure you secure that up before you go to bed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I have used bread bag ties before too. Just the little like twisty bread bag ties. Yeah. So that
Yeah, so anything
actually,
that'll hold it up there.
yeah. That's a good tip too about always making sure the zipper is at the top, so that way the animals can't weasel their way through and create a little opening in the zippers.
Yeah, definitely. Especially when with larger dogs now, because they can go a little bit further up. So we used to kind of put it on the side of the door until Dav realized she could reach it. So now we put them at the very top of the door to try and keep it up and out of everybody's reach.
Yeah. So along these same lines, at night, you've got your tent secured, you're asleep, you wake up, maybe have to go to the bathroom or leave the tent for some reason in the middle of the night. What do you do? What precautions do you take to make sure that none of the dogs or the cats get out with you when you're going out or coming back in?
The benefit of the playpen for the cats, in addition to keeping Dav and Pippin separate, is that the cats can't get out.
Yeah.
They're secured in that playpen area. So then it's just our dogs. And that for me largely just comes down to training. My dogs have been trained with a place command. So if I tell them place, their association of that command is with a blanket. Each of them has their own separate blanket. They're 3 different colors. And wherever we put their blanket, when I say place, that's where they go and they lay down until they've been given the command that it's okay to leave and that they've been released. So we make sure that we have those blankets with us anywhere we go. And that makes it really easy for me because I can just give them a place command and then open up the tent door and nobody's coming out the door. Nobody's trying to escape. They're where they should be until they've been told otherwise.
Yeah, and I know you can train cats to do that same thing. So for those who maybe don't secure their cats in a separate playpen, you could do the same thing. Train your cat. Or I know someone who camps a lot with her cat, and what she does is if she has to leave the tent at night, she puts the harness on her cat and the leash and like hooks the leash to something in the tent. So when she comes in and out, the cat is like tethered basically for, just a few minutes while she has to go to the bathroom or whatever. I wouldn't recommend doing something like that long term, because tethering your cat is not necessarily the safest thing, but if you're just going to be out of the tent for a second, I think that would be okay.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, if we're solo camping, we often just bring them with us.
Yeah.
When we solo camp, we only bring 1 or 2 pets. So it is feasible then to bring them with you.
Mm-hmm.
Just because I don't trust leaving them alone with nobody on the campsite with them.
Yeah.
But when both of us are there, you can just put them in a place, the cats are secured, and the other person can keep an eye on them, so it works out.
Yeah. Yeah, makes sense. What do you do if you have to leave your campsite? Like if you're going on a hike or going to do some sort of activity off-site, do you bring everybody?
Yes, we bring everybody with us. Whether it's to go to the beach, we make sure we're going to a pet-friendly beach. If we're going to do a run, because maybe, we needed to pick up some groceries. I've got a trip coming in July where we're going to be out for the better part of 2 weeks. So there's, going to be a grocery run in there because you want to have some fresh produce and stuff like that. And it's not going to survive in a cooler for that long.
Yeah.
So when we do that, everybody goes in the vehicle. Or if we go for a hike, everybody has to go hiking. The only exception would be if one of us is staying behind. So some of the campsites we go to, or the campgrounds we go to at the provincial parks, for example, do have shower facilities. And so if one of us is going to take a shower, the other one stays back with the animals. But if we're both leaving, yeah, everybody comes with us.
Yeah. So I guess it's safe to assume you wouldn't recommend ever leaving an animal behind at camp, like in the tent for, while you go hiking or doing something else.
No, and for several reasons. It's a safety concern. Once again, coming back to that whole wildlife thing, it only takes a couple seconds for a predator to get into a tent or even a trailer. I was at a campground last summer, and a coyote actually ripped open the door on the person's trailer
Oh my
and went into the
gosh.
trailer. Now, luckily for them, everybody was gone. Like they had taken their dog with them hiking. The assumption is that this coyote either smelt the dog food in the trailer or the food in the trailer. And because there was nobody there to scare it off, it had some time to work on the door and it let itself in. So it tore away like a corner of the trailer door because they're actually not that strong. Like if something wanted to get into it with teeth and nails, the travel trailers these days aren't built to withstand that, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, it's just not something I'd feel comfortable with. And then the second factor is just out of respect for everybody else, because both dogs and cats have a tendency to vocalize when they've been left alone, and they're stressed out and they're worried. And that sound of a dog constantly barking or a cat constantly meowing can ruin somebody else's trip. So out of respect for the people camping around you, I don't think it's a respectful option.
Yes. Yeah, I would say that makes me think of, I've never had something like that happen when camping, but like staying at a hotel. I remember staying in a room and the person beside me had a dog, and I had my 3 cats and a dog. But I didn't leave them behind in the room, but this person did, and they left like all day, and all day long I heard that dog crying and crying. I felt so bad for it because it was obviously stressed and scared, and also it was just super annoying.
Yeah. So no, we just take that extra precaution because it keeps them safe, it keeps everybody happy, it's respectful for everybody else. And a lot of the parks have significant hefty fines if you leave an animal behind at the campsite. So if nothing else deters people from doing it, getting slapped with that fine hurts.
Yeah. Well, that's interesting. I don't know if our state and national parks have a rule like that or not. Maybe they do. I hope they do, because that's a good rule.
Yeah, and it can fall under a few different things. For us, even though all the rules and everything state you shouldn't leave your pet alone, there's no specific fine associated with just leaving your dog or cat at the campsite. But the way that the wardens kind of get around that is that there is a rule that there can be no excessive noise from an animal. So if that dog gets left behind and that dog's barking, guess what? That's excessive noise.
Yeah. Yeah. Makes sense. People got to be respectful.
Exactly.
Um, Before we move on to talking about the challenges and struggles of adventuring with dogs and cats together, do you have any final special camping hacks or tips?
The biggest thing I will say is that they want to watch the wildlife. Cats love watching the birds and the squirrels and the chipmunks. And one thing that I've seen and been asked and talked to a lot with other people is that they talk about ways to kind of block that. Like, how do you stop your cat from seeing the birds so they don't go crazy? We don't. We specifically, the reason our outside setup for them is a wire dog exercise kennel is because it will keep them contained even if they're at the edge of it. And being able to watch all that wildlife and watch the birds and everything else for them is a huge mental enrichment thing. We call it free cat
Yeah.
TV.
Yeah.
And they enjoy that. That is part of why they like being there. So I would say find a way to do it that allows them to enjoy what they enjoy doing too, because it's also their vacation.
Mm-hmm.
And the only other thing I really want to say, and because people have pointed this out to me too, is that there is no right setup. Find the one that works for you. So those exercise panels work great for us. They may not work for somebody else's cat. So don't be afraid to think outside the box and try something a little bit different to figure out what's going to work for you and your cat.
Yeah. Yeah, I really like the point about remembering that the trip is not just for you, it's also for the cats. And you're right, being able to see that wildlife. I mean, that's kind of one of the big reasons that we all take our cats out on adventures, right? Is for that extra enrichment and mental stimulation and getting to watch the free cat TV. And um, so, yeah, we should give them the opportunity to enjoy that.
Exactly. Ours will sit there for hours watching it and they're happy and content. And why would I take that away from them? Right.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. So, we've talked a lot about camping with both of your dogs and cats. You guys also hike and do other things with the dogs and cats together. And, um, I, as someone who adventures with usually just one cat at a time, or sometimes if my husband is with me, we might have the dog and a cat. That comes with kind of its own set of challenges and things. How do you navigate that? Do you have any special things that you do when you're hiking with the dog and a cat? For example, cats may want to go one direction and the dogs want to stay on the trail. How do you manage all of that?
Yeah. So one of the things that we are very careful with the dogs is that all of our dogs are carefully trained to be, I don't want to say off leash because they are off leash trained, but that's not the purpose. They're trained to be hands free. That's the word I was looking for. So we use a system called the buddy system. And what it is it's a waist belt setup that I can actually have. I could have all three of the dogs on my waist with the buddy system. And it's a leash with a bungee portion of the leash. So that tells them that they're getting to the end of it without having like whiplash or anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
And then it clips to their collar. So when we go out, I very rarely have a hand on any of my dog's leashes. My dogs are trained to kind of stay near us. One of us will take one dog and Pippin, and the other one will take two dogs, and then we'll take turns carrying Jinx because Jinx, doesn't want to leave the backpack. But it allows us to kind of focus more on where the cat wants to go because the dogs usually don't care as long as they can sniff and be with us.
Yeah.
And in the event that we do see that, they are getting really interested about smells or something somewhere, it's really easy to pass that one dog off. So whoever has two dogs also has a third leash attached. And the way that the buddy system works is it has a little plastic like D-ring that you can hook your leash into also on your waist. So whoever has the two dogs has that third leash available just in case. So if Pippin's like really set that she's going into the bush somewhere to check out, a scent or something, and she really wants to go that way, we can kind of pass animals back and forth that way. Pippin's a little weird in that she thinks she's a dog. Pippin comes when she's called. She plays fetch. And when we're hiking, she walks right alongside the dogs along the trail. She actually like looks to them and gets excited to be part of the pack, walking alongside them. So we're lucky in that sense, is that she wants to be with them. She wants to be with her pack. But she is still a cat, and she does still get distracted sometimes and want to go her way. So often I'll have either Lucifer and Pippin or Dav and Pippin, and that way I can kind of give Yano the third dog, and I can go do whatever Pippin wants to do. We also make a point when we have all 5 of them camping that we do some one-on-one hiking time too. So I will take just Pippin out and let her have some cat time without the dogs there. And we'll also take either one or all of the dogs. One person will take them and give them some dog time without having to worry about the cats. So we balance things that way a little bit too, with having both of us there and having that possibility. I know we recently did a trip where Pippin really wanted to just kind of have some Pippin time. So my husband took the dogs and went to the dog beach, and I took the cats with Jinx in my back and just went and let Pippin be Pippin and, hike a trail that she was interested in. And so there's a bit of a divide and conquer approach sometimes too.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. You have very well thought out plans so that everybody is happy and gets to experience the wonders of the outside world altogether.
I mean, Dav and Pippin have both been with us. Well, Pippin's been with us for 14 years, and Dav for 15 now. So we've kind of had a long time to make mistakes and realize what works and what doesn't work for us and figure that out. It was just me and them in the beginning before I even met my husband. So things have evolved and developed and grown, and kind of started to find our system and what works for us now.
Yeah, that's awesome. You need to have a video or pictures of you with your waist belt and Yano with all the animals attached to you, because I'm picturing that in my mind, and it's very crazy looking.
It's definitely crazy looking. We get a lot of comments when people come across us on the trails, especially because they see that they are larger dogs, and so when they realize our hands aren't on them, it's always the assumption that our dogs are going to like rush people or take off and pull us down the trail. So yeah, we get a lot of comments and questions when we're out and about.
Yeah, I have a waist belt too that I wear when I hike with the cats that I can hook their leash to or like clip their treat pouch to. And my husband makes fun of me. He calls it my superhero belt. I'm like, hey, it does what I need it to do. I don't care how I look.
Well, that's just it, right? As long as it's functional and it works for what you want so that everybody can enjoy their time, who cares what it looks like?
Yeah. I the mental image I have of you guys and all of these waist belts and like a million leashes coming off of them is pretty awesome. So I am definitely going to need a picture.
I'll have to make sure to get one this summer when we're out and about.
Yes. So since your cats are very accustomed to hiking and camping and just being around your dogs, have you found that they're a little bit more accepting of strange dogs that you encounter when you're out as well, or are they nervous, or how do they feel about strange dogs?
Jinx is nervous. Jinx is nervous about anybody she doesn't know. So cats she doesn't know, people she doesn't know, dogs she doesn't know. Actually, the people thing, it is very short-lived, and then she decides she likes people. But animals she doesn't know, she's very nervous about. But we actually have the opposite problem with Pippin, and this is something that I do want to warn anybody who has like a multi-pet household like that, is that Pippin has hit the point that she's almost too trusting. So we have to be aware of what's going on to protect her, because when she's playing with our dogs, she'll run up to them and throw herself on her back, and she's exposing all of that like highly vulnerable area to them, because that's how they play, right? The dogs will nose at her stomach and she grabs onto their nose and they do their thing. But it then hit the point that because she's so used to having 3 dogs here that all play with her and love her and clean her and cuddle her, that left to her own devices, she'll walk up to a dog she doesn't even know, throw herself in her back, and leave herself completely exposed. So yeah, we have to be very aware of what's going on, and we have to be willing to take that stand to protect her, because she's not going to protect herself.
Yeah, I have that same problem with Sophie. Sophie very much just thinks everybody is her friend. And in the house that we lived in before where we are now, our neighbor had a dog, and both of our yards were fenced in, but it was like a chain link fence. So you could see into the other person's yard. And their dog, I don't know if it was friendly to people or not, but it would always growl and bark if we were out in the backyard with Sophie. And it would be at the fence, like snarling. And I mean, I would not want to go near it. But Sophie was just like strutting right up to that dog, like, hey, man, aren't we best friends? And, you got to like grab her and be like, Sophie, no, that is not safe. Use your noggin there, sweet girl. She just,
I don't know, somewhere along the way, Pippin lost all sense of personal safety and concern, because she just enjoys. So
yeah, it is. It's not the most common thing. I mean, I feel like more commonly cats are nervous of other people, of other dogs. Like Kylo is that way. If we meet another person or dog on the trail, he clams up and wants to get in his backpack, and he usually won't come back out again. Like that's kind of the end of the adventure for him. So we always have to make sure we go places where the chances of running into someone are very slim. Whereas Sophie, she's all about all the people and all the dogs, and that, like, I mean, that can be a concern too, like you said. It may not be as common, but there are definitely cats where you have that opposite problem, where you've got to worry about protecting them because they are too outgoing.
yeah, exactly, too trusting.
Yeah. Terry is asking, how do you warn other hikers that are less respectful that you have cats hiking with you?
Advocating for your pets isn't always easy, but you have to be willing to be vocal and speak up. One thing that helps is that Lucifer, our youngest dog, actually, when we rescued him, a little backstory to explain it. When we rescued him, he had some injuries. So he actually came to us at 4 months old with 2 broken wrists. And that resulted in some pain reactivity. And so he doesn't do well. He is afraid of strange people. So we started putting a sign on his leash. Like it like slides onto his leash, and it says "Do not approach" in really big letters. So people will see that and they'll kind of avoid us because they don't trust him versus because they're respecting the cats. And the other thing is, and I am completely well aware that I have big dog privilege. So when you're out and about just with small dogs or with cats, people feel like they can approach and they feel safe to do so. When I'm out, I've got 3 German Shepherd mixes around me. I have big dog privilege. People assume that because they're Shepherd mixes that they're dangerous and will actually keep a distance because they're afraid my dogs are going to, I don't know, attack them or bite them, or I don't know, my dogs might lick them to death. But big dog privilege is a very real thing. Like that mentality, especially because Dav looks like a purebred shepherd. Like she looks like this big, scary purebred shepherd. And even at 15, because she's in such good shape, she doesn't show her age. So she looks like this big, scary dog. So we've been lucky in that sense. But if I am going out with just the cats, I'm very vocal if I have to be. I have no problem telling people where to go and how to get there, if that's what it comes down to. Advocating for my animals is concern number 1. And if I avenge you, then you probably asked for it. That's how I view it.
I wish I had a little bit of your boldness, I guess is the word. Because I'm like,
if I ask somebody to go away once politely and, give us space politely and they don't listen, then they've already shown me they don't respect me. There's no need for me to try and, dance around it and tap dance around their feelings. They've shown me how they feel, and I don't need to worry about that.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's a good point. Darren is asking if you ever encounter coyotes or other wild animals when you're out.
Yes, so we have a major coyote problem right now in here, actually around our house even. So I live in a literal cabin in the woods. I'm on 100 acres of woodland. There's nothing else around us except forest. We're in like a wooden old school cabin that's wood heated and the whole bit, right?
You're glamping. You're glamping, Britt.
Pretty much. I glamp permanently. And because we're surrounded by woodland and where we are in, we're in kind of what's called cottage country in Ontario, Canada. So there are bears and coyotes around the area a lot, and the coyote problem in particular, they will come almost right up to the house, to the property. We're currently trying to deal with the fact that Lucifer thinks he can howl at them and call them into play. He doesn't seem to realize that that's not a good thing. So anytime that we're going out and about and exploring, even if it's just hiking our own property, we have to make sure we have some sort of deterrent with us, whether it's a noisemaker or pepper spray or something to, well, sorry, we can't call it pepper spray here because I'm Canadian and it's not legal to carry pepper spray, but we can carry bear spray, which is really just strong pepper spray.
Yeah.
So my favorite personally though is the noisemakers. There's a lot that you can purchase, or coyote bangers as some will call them, and they just make a really loud bang sound. We've conditioned all of our animals so that that doesn't scare them. They know what it is and it's to protect them, and we just keep one of those with us anywhere we go.
How do you condition your animals to accept something like that?
You have to start at a distance. So like Yano would go out into the woods and set it off while I'm with one of the animals and I'm giving them praise and treats and making it no big deal. And then you just have to slowly work closer and closer and closer until they think nothing of it, because when they hear that noise, the only association they have is that, oh, that noise means mom's going to be giving me treats and praise.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
High value treats. High value treats do a lot.
Yes. What are the high value treats of choice at your house?
Freeze-dried tuna treats have been the big thing lately.
Right.
We do a lot of freeze-dried treats just because they're great for hiking, right? But freeze-dried tuna in particular lately has been the big winner.
Okay. All right. What about the squeezy treats?
Oh, yes. The Caru brand ones have been the big thing lately in our house. We got a bunch of them when I was actually like chatting with the brand about things at one of the trade shows I went to, and ended up having to search them out and find them because after they had them, they didn't want any other squeezy treats. They wanted those ones.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, cool. Britt, I have really enjoyed hearing about all of your adventures and how you keep your pack safe, but also make sure that they're having their best possible time and enjoying themselves right along with you. So thank you for sharing all of this information. For those of you watching, drop your final questions and comments, because we're going to start wrapping things up. But yeah, Britt, just again, thank you for being here and sharing your time and your knowledge with us. Really appreciate it.
Thank you for inviting me. I absolutely love talking about it and sharing information if that can help anybody else. So it was fun.
Yeah. And for those watching, if you want to find more of Britt and her pack online, you can find her in all of the social media places at the Cass Pack, and then her website, thecaspack.com. She writes really great, well-researched and thought out, informative articles on various topics about adventuring with both dogs and cats. So really great resource for those outdoor adventure people. And let's see. Oh, got a couple final comments. Oh, Chloe says, what is your favorite pet camping site?
Actually, I follow a blog called Long Haul Trekkers that I absolutely love, and they share some great information about like hiking. It's more specific to dogs, but from the dog aspect, I love that one, and then the cat aspect. I mean, I would be foolish not to say Kitty Cat Go. You know that I love being part of your adventure Facebook group and being able to connect with others on there, and I'm a little partial to your products too. So Woman loves her leash with her, limited edition colors.
Well, her color leash looks great on her, by the way.
She loves it, and she gets compliments everywhere she goes. So,
Darren is also asking about what kind of backpacks you use when you're carrying your cats on the trail.
So the backpack that I'm using right now actually is like a knockoff brand off Amazon that I happened to find and just really liked and tried it out. I tried, I think, 4 or 5 different backpacks until I could find one that worked for ours, mainly because Jinx is picky. So oddly enough, yeah, it's a knockoff brand backpack that's got a full mesh front on it so that she can see out and has the airflow and everything at the front of the backpack. But I guess the best thing to say about that is don't be afraid to try and experiment and see. They can't, like, Jinx can't stand anything that has one of those like plastic bubble fronts on them. She can't stand that. She doesn't like anything that has limited visibility, even though she wants to be in the backpack. She wants to see everything that's going on. So this one offered a bigger space to see, because we noticed that when we had one that had smaller areas, she would like huddle herself over near where the opening was. So we got one with the whole front opening, and that made her happy.
That's cool. Yeah, it's like you were talking about the camp setup, right? Everybody is going to have different needs and different preferences, and that's the same with backpacks, right? Got to try them out and see which ones your cat likes the best.
Exactly, is experiment and pay attention to what your cat's telling you, because your cat's going to tell you if they like it or they don't.
Yeah, for sure. Well, again, if you guys want to follow up with Britt about anything or follow her awesome pack online, the Cast Pack and all of the places. And thank you again, Britt, for joining us tonight and sharing your expertise. That's it for tonight. If you have any more questions or want to continue any more discussions, be sure to join my Facebook group, KittyCatGO Adventure Team. And also mark your calendars for the next episode of Kitty Cat Go Live, which will be Wednesday, April 12th at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. We'll be talking about car travel with cats with Lindsay Wolko from the Center for Pet Safety. So that'll be a informative episode. I'm looking forward to that. And if you're watching on YouTube, hit the subscribe button and the follow button if you're watching on Facebook, so you don't miss any future episodes or happenings here at Kitty Cat Go. Thanks again for hanging out with us tonight. I hope you learned something and had some fun. Happy adventuring, everybody.